Live from the 22 News Broadcast Center, your local election headquarters. This is a Chicopee mayoral debate. And now, here's Rich Teddemer.
Good afternoon and welcome to a special Your Election Headquarters presentation. I'm Rich Teddemer. Today we're hosting a debate among the candidates running for mayor of Chicopee. And joining me in studio today are City Council President John Vieau and former police officer and school administrator Joe Morissette. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. We'll begin with opening statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make that opening statement. And by virtue of the drawing, John Vieau, you go first.
Yes, thank you, Rich, and thank you, 22 News, for having me today. As many of you may know, I'm a lifelong resident here of the city of Chicopee. I'm a product of Chicopee Public Schools, where I graduated 8th in my class from Chicopee High School. I went on to achieve a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Massachusetts, and I'm also by trade a certified general real estate appraiser. I've been serving the city of Chicopee for over 21 years. I spent 5 years on our planning board, 16 years on the city council representing Ward 3, and 4 years as city council president. I'm running for mayor because I believe the city of Chicopee needs a leader with experience, the mindset and the skill set to keep Chicopee moving forward at a pace that's palatable to the taxpayers and the ratepayers here in the city of Chicopee. I'm looking forward to these questions and a debate with you, Vice Principal Morissette. Thank you.
Joe Morissette, your opening statement, please.
Well, again, thank you, Rich, and thank you to 22 News and the viewers out there. Again, my name is Joe Morissette. I'm right now a vice principal at Chicopee Comp High School, a police officer. I had been a police officer for 25 years, and I believe that it's time for change. The reason I'm running for mayor is I believe there's time for new leadership in the city. I'm married. I live in the city. I own a home here. All three of my kids have went to school here in Chicopee, and I've really had some experiences with the police department and the schools, my military service. I feel that's going to give me a better look and a new way of looking at things in the city. I just see that over the last 16 years, we've seen opportunities and business opportunities in the city fade away. And I just don't feel that we can keep doing that and continue on that way. So I believe it's time for a change, and that's why I'm running for mayor in Chicopee. So thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, thanks very much. We move on to the question and answers portion of the debate. Each candidate will be asked the same question, have 1 minute to respond, and we had a drawing to determine the order of questions. By virtue of that drawing, Joe Morissette, you will answer first. We're going to bring up a topic right off the bat, a topic that's been talked about online, has been talked about on the radio, not talked about here on 22 News, but here it is. A former Chicopee Comprehensive High School student made accusations that you as vice principal exposed an intimate encounter with that student and another student over the school's loudspeaker. What's your response to these accusations?
So the accusation, the only thing that's truthful in that is that the intercom was left open for a short period of time. I believe it was about a minute, a little less than a minute. There was nothing intimate discussed. The incident happened early on in the day, Rich. And by the time I learned of it, it had been everywhere in the school except in my office. There was another administrator in the office. This incident was addressed with the principal, with the superintendent's office. The resource officer knew about it. This is completely false and it's completely unfounded. So I feel bad for the poor young man. You know, everybody's talking about the video. There's nothing that we did that we could change that. I mean, I apologize to the young man. I apologize to his family or to his father. I don't know what else to say about it. It's completely false.
And that video was released on YouTube, the video that
Yes, it was.
You're talking about there. John, do you have any comments about that at all?
Well, Ray, there's been some accusations, I'm sorry, Rich, that there's been some accusations that it's been politically driven, and frankly, I just don't see that as, my campaign has been very positive. It's about me and my merit as a person and why I'm running for mayor of Chicopee, because I believe in honesty and integrity, and certainly no one in my campaign or in my campaign committee would even consider being involved in anything of this nature. I do feel very sorry for the young man and the experience that he went through at Chicopee Comprehensive High School. We've been, again, very transparent on why we're running for mayor, and my campaign has been very positive, and that's what we're going to proceed to do for the next 2 weeks.
Now let's talk about the questions that the reason you're here in the first place.
Thank you.
We'll start here with John. Regardless of who wins, the city of Chicopee will have new leadership for the first time in 6 years following the November election. What would some of your top priorities be once you are in the mayor's office?
Well, thank you, Rich. That's a great question. The city of Chicopee has so much potential right now. We are rolling out municipal broadband. We have the opportunity to revitalize our downtown. The basically something that's never happened before. We have an influx of new residential units coming downtown, affordable units. We have what's called the Transformation Development Initiative grant. That grant is aligning with all the other things that are happening, give us this potential. It could be millions of dollars of new startup businesses down. It's something that I'm super proud of and excited to get working on. There's a lot of other important projects. We're renovating our safety complex. We're in phase 2 of renovating that, the fire side, and our city hall is going to be restored to its former glory. Very exciting time in the city of Chicopee, and I just want to keep us progressively moving forward.
Thanks, John. Joe, what would be your top priorities if you're in the mayor's office?
Right in there, first off, Rich, my immediate priority is going to be to get working on that police contract and make sure that we start bringing police officers that are off the police department. We've lost 15, actually now 16. We had another police officer retire. One of our veteran canine officers retired. The downtown absolutely will happen, but before we can get that happening, we have to make that downtown safe. I think we need to institute more walking beats in that downtown on a regular basis, but not just putting a random person down there, regular person, a regular officer that's down there all the time that knows the people and builds relationships with them. The other thing that I think we really need to work on is the transparency in City Hall, making sure that people know what's going on in the city, that they have the ability to get a hold of the mayor or somebody in the mayor's office and get a solid answer on questions that they have about things going on. That really doesn't happen as frequently as it should, and that's something that I'd vow to do when I get into the mayor's office.
And Joe, you get the next question as well. The issue of trash and recycling collection has been a big one in Chicopee, especially after the closing of the landfill off New Lombard Road. What would you do as mayor to address the concerns of residents?
Well, that's a great question, Rich, as well. It's something I get asked a lot when I'm on the doors. We talked about the trash issue. I don't think we'd be having this conversation if my opponent was able to get along with the mayor some time ago and we had those larger barrels. We certainly have a problem in the city, but we also have a problem where people can't afford these bags that they're putting out. We have a very serious issue where people don't have a lot of extra money in the city and they have to pay to get rid of their trash. I think we need to address that in a very different manner. I'd like to see seniors and larger families that don't have the funds be able to get larger barrels at their homes or a second barrel so that they can do that. As far as getting rid of the trash, it's absolutely a serious problem. People have been concerned about this for years. We've heard us talk about it, but we haven't come up with an answer. It was just, let's just truck it somewhere else. And to me, that's not the answer. We can't just pay somebody else to get rid of it. We have to find a better way to be more economical about it and more spendthrifty about it.
John, what would you do as mayor to address the concerns of residents about the trash and recycling?
Well, first and foremost, Rich, what I can tell you is that the city of Chicopee did not want to institute a trash fee. And this is something that didn't happen overnight. We've known for many, many years that our landfill was going to come to an end, and we've been preparing for it. We've had consultants in our DPW working on this, and what we've come up with is a plan it's incentivizing recycling. And we were able to, so I actually respectfully disagree with you, Joe Morissette. We did not have an opportunity to get bigger barrels unless we paid for them. They were 35-gallon barrels that were the biggest barrels that we could get with a grant. So we got $800,000 worth of barrels. We have a trash system in place that is incentivizing recycling. We've reduced our recycling down from, it was 13,000 ton to under 10, almost 35–40% reduction in recycling. We want to be a zero-waste city at some point, and that's what we're working towards. And I think what we're doing right now is what other area communities are looking at because it works.
John, you get the next question as well.
Okay.
Like several other downtown areas in Western Massachusetts, there are a number of vacant storefronts in downtown Chicopee. What would you do in order to revitalize that area?
Well, like I said in the opening statement, it's an exciting time for downtown Chicopee. We have acquired the TDI grant, that's the Transformation Development Initiative grant, and if done properly, it could mean millions of dollars in new startup businesses. We can take this public grant money and we can use that money to repurpose property downtown. We can subsidize rents for new business owners. It's a really exciting time. We can build out new facades for businesses that are already in place. Again, it's an exciting time to revitalize downtown. We have an influx of new residents coming with affordable units at Cabottville and Lyman Mills. I think that there's an opportunity here that with my background in real estate and working in collaboration with our economic development director, our planning department, and our new Mass Fellow, we can really accomplish a lot and make Chicopee Center something that we're all really proud of.
Joe, how would you revitalize downtown Chicopee?
Well, I think, again, what I touched on initially, we have a problem with public safety down there. We had a couple seniors that were pretty seriously assaulted recently. Mr. Vieau referred to that as a minor isolated incident. I don't agree with that. I think it's not an easy place for people to walk and move from business to business. We need to change that. We need to make it safe for people, make it comfortable for residents and visitors to come in, and not comfortable for the criminals. It's something that needs to be done right away. When that happens, we do have that TDI grant, and the fellow, the Mass Department, or the Mass Fellow that's here, she'll be very helpful in getting that stuff going, but the first things first is to clean it up. As far as the redevelopment of those homes down there, again, we have an inequity issue with housing. We have homeless people in the center that needs to be addressed. And before we can get those apartments online, we had to solve all the other basic problems down below.
All right, Joe, thanks very much. John as well. We're halfway through our debate, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with more questions and answers from the candidates running for mayor of Chicopee. You're watching 22 News. Welcome back to our special debate between Joe Morissette and John Vieau, the candidates running for mayor of Chicopee, and we continue with more questions for the candidates. And Joe Morissette, you get the next question. You touched on this too, public safety. Do you think that Chicopee is a safe city, and what would you do to bring down crime?
I think Chicopee is absolutely a safe city in most areas, but I think crime as a whole, we have some areas that we need to work on. The center being one, the Willimantic area being another. We need to bring the police complement back up to where it belongs. It was voted in at 120 on the city charter, and we're down 16, and we need to figure out why we're losing them. And it's not just about losing the police officers and the numbers being down. We're paying to train these new officers. We're investing all this time and money, which they deserve, the benefits that they're getting. But the problem is that they're taking the money that we've invested into them, and they're going to other communities, and they're benefiting from our good work. So we've got a good plan in place with the police department. They've used community policing type of ideas and mindsets before. That will work, but it's only going to work if we build that complement of those police officers back up to where they belong.
John, is Chicopee a safe city, and what would you do to bring down crime?
Well, absolutely. I think the city of Chicopee is a very safe city. I have the utmost respect for our men in blue and our fire department to keeping us safe. And I can tell you, when it comes to downtown, the city of Chicopee, there were some isolated incidents that we've already referenced earlier, and I'm glad that we have this question. The police chief, myself, and the mayor have discussed this, and we're implementing 24-hour walking beats, 24/7 walking beats downtown, not seasonal beats that we've done in the summer and during the warmer weather. They're talking about more creative ways of policing, whereas that's park and walks, and park your car and walk the neighborhood and meet the neighbors. Again, I have the utmost respect for our police department. I think that our guys are second to none. Over 16 years, we've provided them with everything they need to not only keep us safe, but to keep themselves safe every day. And I think the city of Chicopee is a very safe place. My headquarters is downtown, and I feel safe down there every night when I'm down there. Thank you.
Next question. The opioid crisis is a huge public health problem here in the region. What needs to be done in the city of Chicopee to reduce overdose deaths and provide the needed help for people struggling with addiction?
The opioid crisis, Rich, it's not an I fix problem, it's a we. It's a collaboration, working together. You know, I've been endorsed by Nick Cochi, our sheriff, and he's got quite a task force put together right now, and I think they're doing great things. They have their Mill Street facility it's saved over almost 1,000 people's lives. And I think that if we keep working in collaboration with our police department, you know, all of our officers carry Narcan, all of our firefighters carry Narcan, and all our ambulance attendees, they carry Narcan. And the reason we do that is because we want to save lives. It's not going to be easy to fix overnight. I'm looking forward to working in, like I said, collaboration with them and also social service entities that can help us to combat this opioid crisis. It's not going to be an easy one, but I think we're making a lot of progress.
Joe, what would you do as mayor to provide help for people struggling with addiction?
My first concern is that the city's fallen behind. The last 16 years when Mr. Vieau was on the council, the city was the last one to join that lawsuit against the drug companies and the drug providers. That bothers me, that we're always seem to be the last one. We jump on other people's coattails and we do what everyone else does. We absolutely can rely on Sheriff Cochi and his program, but that's specifically for people that are incarcerated. and people that are part of the court system. I think we need to look at people that aren't. We need to bring our faith groups together, our churches, our community leaders, our police department, health services people together, and come up with a plan in the downtown area and in all kinds of areas, because the opioid crisis doesn't care how young or old you are. It doesn't care how much money you make. It affects everybody. We've had 181 to date overdoses in the city of Chicopee since the first of the year. 130 people a day die in the United States from opioid overdoses. So we need to address that problem. That's a huge issue in the city, and that's part of cleaning up the entire city and policing that whole city.
All right, Joe, you get the next question. A contract dispute between Chicopee teachers and the city received a lot of attention last year. What can you do to ensure a healthy relationship between the city and its employees?
Well, that's another issue that's near and dear to my heart, obviously, Rich. We're losing teachers. In the last 2 years, we've lost about 100 teachers, paraprofessionals, and administrators to other districts. And again, some people will tell you that a new person coming in gives you fresh ideas. I would disagree. When we lose teachers and we lose administrators and paraprofessionals, we lose veteran people with solid ideas and good experience. We need to correct that issue. As far as changing things in the contract, I think not just the teacher's contract, every contract needs to be negotiated early. They need to be worked on time, and they need to be negotiated in good faith. One of the issues has been that we're not negotiating in good faith on a lot of these contracts. Mr. Vieau was part of a standout for the teachers, went and addressed them, and at some point when he was asked about support, he said, "That's not my job, that's the mayor's job. We don't get involved." And I understand that's not the job, but I think the job of the city council leader is to get the city council to rally around and support the teachers and tell the mayor it's time that we solve this contract.
John, what can you do as mayor to ensure a healthy relationship between the city and its employees?
Well, that's a great question. The city of Chicopee's been through some really challenging times over the past 5 years, and funding our future is what it's all about. We've been underfunded and shortchanged for far too long. We're a gateway community, and we're not a wealthy community. The median household income in the city of Chicopee is under $50,000. So the city's been contributing their fair share to make sure that we don't cut essential services to our students. We've been pretty fortunate over the past 5 years. We've had no layoffs, and I plan on standing with the teachers union moving forward to making sure that we do fund our future properly, because the kids are our future. And I've always, frankly, we have 2 brand new state-of-the-art high schools. I was at the table for those projects. A brand new DuPont middle school. We're adding air conditioning to our elementary schools and our middle school. It's incredible, the things we're doing as a school district, and I'm very proud of it.
All right, John, you get the next question now. The demographics of Chicopee are changing. The city has a growing Latino population, but no Latino members on the city council. As mayor, how will you reach out to this and other communities that are unrepresented in city government?
Well, I've been very fortunate to work with New North Citizens Council, and I've got to meet a lot of our Hispanic community, not just through the Springfield side, but the Chicopee side. I'm a Boys and Girls Club kid. I worked down at the Boys and Girls Club for many years, and I saw the transition. Predominantly single moms living in the housing projects to Hispanics, and I've built really positive relationships with them, and I'm looking forward to continue to work with that population. They're a hardworking class of people. I have a lot of friends who are Hispanic, and I'm pretty excited about what's going on with our community as we invite everyone of every race, creed, and color to the city of Chicopee.
Joe, how would you reach out to these other communities and help make sure that they're represented in city government?
I think that we need to get some neighborhood groups together, some groups of the Latino population. I've actually already started working on that, Rich. I have a couple leaders in the Latino community that have come forward and want to start putting groups together that we can turn to for things like cultural events that would directly reflect some of the culture that they do in the city. I'm not just talking about weekend parties or a block party, but things that about arts and things that will affect them. At the same time, I want to make sure that we're affording to everybody in the Latino community the efforts of the school district and making sure that they're represented in things that they want to do in the school district. I'd like to see a more diverse population on our city council, and I think I'd really try to encourage someone to enjoy the benefits of the election process and maybe get a little bit more cross-representation on our council in future years.
Speaking of that election process, the mayor of Chicopee is elected to a 2-year term, while the mayors of Springfield, Holyoke, and West Springfield are 4-year terms. Do you think that Chicopee should switch to a 4-year mayoral term? Why and why not?
It's been a tough question. A lot of people have asked about moving that, and I'm just not, I'm not committed to the fact that we need to change that right away. Before I commit to moving into a 4-year term, I'd like to see how a 2-year term works and what we can get done. Of course, when there's more time on the table in front of you, you can work at a better pace. Your project, you get to see your projects through a little bit further. But I'm not committed to turning it into a 4-year term, and I think that really needs to be something the city as a whole is going to have to address. That's just not something that we're going to do without a citywide vote.
John, 4-year term or a 2-year term for Chicopee mayor?
Well, I believe in accountability, Rich, and I think that's a 2-year term is what we currently have, and I think that a 2-year term, again, I'd like to also experience what you can get accomplished in 2 years. It's my understanding that by the time you get up and running, you feel like you're running out of time and you're out campaigning again. So would we consider possibly going to a 4-year term? I think that's something we would let the voters of Chicopee decide, maybe as a binding or non-binding ballot question. But as for being accountable every 2 years, I do believe in that. I've been doing that for 16 years, and I would continue to do so because I represent the people here in the city of Chicopee, and I always want to do what's right on their behalf.
Okay, just checking. Do we have time for one more question here? We have a 30-second response to the one more question here. So we'll ask you about the Uniroyal factory site, which has been under development for decades. What needs to be done in order to finish this project?
So the Uniroyal FaceMate project is something we took on, and that was it was estimated to be a negative $22 million tax title taking, which was a pretty incredible feat. And again, I was just one person at the table at that time. Since that point, we've removed 13 of the 15 buildings. We're progressively moving forward. We've mothballed the main office building for the Uniroyal site, and there's so much potential. And I'm looking forward, hopefully as our next mayor, to redevelop that site. We're in the middle of a comprehensive plan here in the city of Chicopee, and that's something that for economic development that I'm looking forward to seeing some results. And I've mentioned before that I'm in favor of hiring an economic development director to help me along with this project.
Joe,
and many others.
We've been talking about it for decades too. How is this project going to be finished?
How it's going to be finished is we have to keep plugging away at what we're doing. I really believe that there's a lot of opportunity down there. Everybody's talking about how we're going to clean it up and how we're going to get it ready. What I'm not seeing is that foresight and that working out 5-10 years from now, what are we going to do with it once it is clean? I haven't heard a lot of talk about that. Some people will tell you about housing and so forth, but I think we need to talk about making that a commercially viable project so that we can get commercial businesses in there. And that's one of the things when I talk about a lack of foresight, that's the thing that concerns me about Mr. View's views. He wants to do what's now. I want to look 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road.
All right, candidates, now it's time for closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make that closing statement. The order was determined by a drawing, and Joe Morissette, you'll go first.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much to 22 News and you, Rich, and I appreciate everyone tuning in today and seeing the debate. Again, this is a very simple question that we're posing to the citizens and the residents of Chicopee. If you're happy with the way things have been, your taxes are going up, your water and sewer rates going up, the police department getting not as strong as it should be, and not growing the way it should, and the issues that we've been facing in the city on a daily basis. If you're okay with that, then I guess that I'm not the one you want. If you want change, if you want a new way of looking at things in the city, and you're ready to move forward and start thinking about 2020 and beyond, then I'm your person. I'm going to be out leading from behind, not from behind that desk, but out talking to people. I'm going to be talking to the residents, and the mayor's office is going to be open for you to come in. And if you can't come in, then I'm going to come to you. I'll be knocking on your door and coming and sit in your living room, and we're going to talk about the issues that you're concerned about. Thank you very much, Rich. Thank you, everybody.
John View, your closing statement, please.
Yes, thank you, Rich, and thank you, 22 News. The city of Chicopee has so much potential, and me, as a city councilor for the past 16 years, I have the experience, the leadership, the mindset to keep us moving forward. I've been out there knocking on doors, and I'm trying to earn people's trust. I've earned the trust of a lot of people in the city of Chicopee, but I want to earn more. Every day I go out there and I'm fighting to make Chicopee a better place for us to live and to raise a family. As a real estate appraiser with my background, I think economic development is in our immediate future. There's so much potential, like I said, and I just think that we can, if we do things right, we're going to create some great jobs. And I want Chicopee to be the envy of Western Mass. I think Chicopee is a great place to live, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's all the time we have for today's debate. And thank you to Joe Morissette and John View for joining us today. If you missed any of today's program, it will be available in its entirety on wwlp.com. And our series of debates continues tomorrow with the candidates running for mayor of Greenfield. Then on Friday, it's the candidates for mayor of Westfield. Election day is November 5th, so make sure you have your voice heard. I'm Rich Tadimer. Have a good afternoon. See ya. Joe?